Hey everyone, it's Jamie from Independent Street Tarot and Seasons from Ritual, and I'm here to talk about this beautiful full moon in Gemini that we're having today, the 26th and the 27th. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday as well. And as we all know, the sun has just entered Sagittarius. And so the sign directly across from Sagittarius is Gemini, and that is where the moon is. And this is how we get the full moon, because it's when the sun and the moon are opposite of each other. So Sagittarius is mutable fire, Gemini is mutable air. And I think that's so beautiful because, you know, air and fire are a good combination, okay? Especially when they work together, you know. And to smother a fire, you take away the oxygen. So it's really important to kind of see how these two signs work with each other on opposite sides of the spectrum. But when they do work with each other, they hit that perfect balance to get us to where we need to be. Mutable signs are very powerful in moving us because they allow us to see both sides. So they can see what we need to let go, and they can see how where we need to get moving. And while fixed energy is more fixed, the cardinal signs that initiate us wants us to go, right? So it's important to have this mutable energy on the planet, because it lets us pick the path we want to pick instead of just being told this is the path. So full moon Gemini is the twins. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and the great thing about Mercury right now is he is in maybe 24 degrees of Sagittarius. And so Gemini's ruler is in Sagittarius. So it's creating a good conversation to have. Gemini wants to communicate. Gemini is known as, to me anyway, as the journalist. Gemini asks lots of questions. Air signs are known to be cerebral, to think, right? And then Gemini is communication because it's ruled by Mercury. So we have Mercury in that 24, 25 degrees of Sagittarius right now. And so it is giving us a great way to start communicating to ourselves in a different way, that honestly should be a little more mature, that should be a little more elevated, maybe with more compassion, correct? Because Sagittarius is the adventurer, the student, right? The philosopher, all those things. And so it's like Mercury has gone through Sagittarius and seen how it's adventured, and it's giving us a new way of speaking about and communicating to ourselves about where we want to go, right? And who we are now at this point in our lives. When the full moon energy comes in, the way that I work with full moons is that full moons illuminate. Full moons allow us to see the whole picture. And so when we're working with our manifestations, or if you haven't, this is the right time to start manifesting, because this is the time, full moons is when we're most psychic. And full moons to me is that perfect balance of that masculine and feminine being apart from each other. And to me, when they're looking at each other eye to eye in that perfect symmetry, it does create this beautiful space, right? Where all things are possible. So working with manifestations, if you've been working on manifestations, this is the time to ask Gemini, okay, what is the best way to bring this into my life as quickly as possible? And then if you're just like, shit, I need to manifest, well then claim your manifestations now, or in your intentions, I should say, set your intentions now and start seeing what comes up, right? Because everything is illuminated with this full moon. That's how I use full moons. I see them as illumination. I see them as being able to show us what needs to come in. It's like with full moons, it helps us cut through the BS, quite honestly, and see where we are and where we need to go. So this energy for the next 3 days or so, sit with the full moon, see what starts coming in. Your mind may be very active because this is Gemini. Write down those notes. Try not to judge them, right? Because this is kind of like stream of consciousness thinking to see what comes in. And be aware if you are asking yourself a lot of questions. That's great, and make sure they're in a loving vibration, right? Not an accusatory lower tone vibration. And it is important to start seeing that. Like if you have ideas and all these dreams, and you keep going to certain people and they're not supporting them, be very aware of that. Okay. That's not where you need to keep going to make your dreams happen. Okay. And it can be very noticeable, at this time where it's just like, wow, I never noticed that every time I went to this person and said something, they, either brush it off or ask me questions that made me feel like I had to defend myself. So be aware of this, because I do think that one thing this full moon is illuminating is not only how we talk to ourselves, and how we communicate to ourselves, but it's going to be like how we start communicating to others, but also noticing how they're communicating back to us, right? That Sagittarius, we're in the first degrees of Sagittarius, and Sagittarius wants new adventures, right? New friends, new ways to go. He's ready to move us. So it's going to start illuminating the places where we've been spending too much time and we haven't moved on with our lives. Okay. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? So just start noticing that. The other thing that I think is going to be illuminated, well, let me say this too. Chiron, who is the great healer, known as the wounded healer, but we call him the great healer, is going to be sextiling this moon. And so I do feel like this is going to be illuminating a lot of areas where we thought we couldn't do something, or we couldn't speak up. And now we're noticing that we can, right? Because it would be like going back to that same idea that, well, nothing's moving because I keep going to the same people and getting the same result. And it's like, oh, I got it. When we need to start going to new people, right? That's Sagittarius, new ideas, new energy, right? So start going to new people with your ideas. Start seeing that maybe what you thought was a hindrance wasn't ever yours, that it did belong to someone else, right? And like that healing is there, so you can speak to yourself differently about what you thought was, a low point for you, or something you couldn't do very well, or something you felt a little embarrassed about, right? Now you can start communicating to yourself differently, because also you're going to start going to new people to help get you to go where you want to go. And the other good thing is, I do believe the moon is squaring Neptune and Saturn. Okay. And that is good, because when Neptune is unchecked, right, we're like way, way lost in our dreams, right? But when it's squaring this Saturn, it's going to bring in that stability. So on one hand, you're going to go, if you're going to that person and you're like, Jesus, every time I go to this person and I talk to them, they make me feel unstable. Aha. Okay, so that's a big revelation. And so now you can start going to new people, right? And then you can start asking yourself, well, do I feel stable in this idea? Do I feel like I know what to do in order to give this a good foundation? Do I know where to go in order to give this a good foundation? And if it's not that person, then it needs to be over here. And that's important, because Gemini is known as duality. I feel like Gemini, to me, lost the sign of duality after the South Node went in there. Okay. Because the reality of it is, well, to me right now, right, the duality, right, once that happened a couple years ago, I felt like we were taking this push to pick a lane, right? And if the lane is, I really want these dreams to keep moving, well, then you got to pick that lane that's going to get you there, right? Especially if you start noticing the other lane isn't going to get you there, right? I don't feel like that's duality. I feel like that's us starting to pick a lane, and I feel like that's coming in hot, especially with everything that's going on in the world today, right? Like we can't keep talking out both sides of our mouths, right? And I feel like a lot of times, I guess that could be Gemini in its lower vibration. But Gemini in its highest vibration is, you got two energies working on the same project. You got that yin and yang, and you can ask intelligent questions, and you can look at all scenarios, right, to see how it can get you there. And then if you go through all the scenarios and you're like, this isn't plausible, this can't happen, then you're able to come up with a new idea. Okay. And that I think is like one of the many strengths of Gemini, the way it can communicate, but it's going to start communicating with that higher octave. It's going to start communicating with the idea that we are moving to something new. Okay. Sagittarius is across from us and wants new answers, right? To go on these new adventures, to meet these new friends, to get into this new earth or new world or new energy or new vibration, however that resonates with you. So use this full moon to illuminate all these things that you want to have happen, but also to see the landscape clearly, to start seeing who is in your corner and who is not in your corner, right? And sit with that. And then when the moon starts to get smaller, wax, I believe, then you'll start putting in action. But with the full moon, see the illuminations, know that's when we're the most psychic, see what starts coming in. Okay, use this great energy of Gemini. Its ruler is in those final degrees of Sagittarius, which I can't make this up. I think that's so wonderful. It is sextiling Chiron, so now we can give a new story to what we thought was our wounds, right? But they're not our wounds anymore. And then it's also squaring Saturn and Neptune, right? So it's going to start making us more stable to bring these dreams in. Even if the dream is just be a happier person, once you start noticing, yeesh, every time I go to that person, this is what happens. But then you can ask yourself, is it me or is it them? Right? That's a good question. Is it me or is it them? 9 times out of 10, it's us, right? So it's really a great time to have these conversations with ourselves to see how we can, change, be more compassionate and love within ourselves, right? And then we're able to give it to the other. Okay, guys. I'm going to leave it there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out via Instagram, the YouTube channel, or my websites. A programming note. So Helen and I, she's decided to do something different with her astrology. So apparently last week was our last show. And so I support her in all her new endeavors. And so with this, right, I'm going to take this time and this full moon to kind of see, because everything's illuminated, what would be the best way to keep helping and serving ourselves, serving this channel moving forward for sure. So there won't be a update in its normal form. It's going to be something new. And so I might take this week off, but I mean, the channel's still going to be busy. So thank you guys for being with us as we did that for the past 2 years or year and a half. That was a lot of fun. I hope you guys got some good information for it, and I'm excited to see what comes through. I'm going to talk to everybody up there and around here and over there to see what be the best thing to do moving forward. So if you guys have any ideas, feel free to put those in the comments too. But till then, enjoy this full moon in Gemini.